All right, I think a few of you are still joining in. Good evening. My name is Troy Rice. I am the founder of FarmBridge. Tonight, we're going to cover selling online and some digital strategies and interesting takeaways for you on this part 2 of the Masterclass series that is hosted between FarmBridge and Harris Seeds. And so, first of all, before I introduce our guest tonight, want to acknowledge Harris Seeds and most importantly, Kendall, who's working behind the scenes, who many of you have maybe communicated via email, who has worked really diligently to pull this together. We've received some excellent feedback from you guys from the first session with Michael Kilpatrick. We hope that this is the same. We do invite you to Q&A or chat in your questions throughout the session. We will try to get to it at the end, unless there's something that comes up where Chris and I want to kind of bounce it off in the time being. But for the most part, we're going to cover what Chris wants to cover in this presentation. We'll most certainly get to your questions, so please chat those in. There's a few things in the box right there as of reminders for the 4 parts that are coming up, but we'll share that at the end. So with all that out of the way, I want to introduce Chris Walker from Local Line. He is head of sales. He comes from a family actually growing up on a beef farm, so very in tune with the farming community, has experience in working with grocers and retailers, and now is head of sales and predominantly for this conversation to help you with online selling. And so welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Troy. Pleasure to be here. And thank you again, Kendall, behind the scenes. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with FarmBridge and Harris Seeds on this project to help inform and educate suppliers, farmers, of all shapes and sizes on what it's like to sell online. So let's jump right in. This presentation, just to set some expectations off the hop, we're going to go about a mile wide and an inch deep tonight. There's lots of content out there. There's tons of best practices. There's lots of people far smarter than myself who can give you lots of advice. This is the culmination tonight of, at least at a high level, a lot of the tips and tricks that we've learned at Local Line in terms of how we've supported suppliers, markets, hubs, make the transition to online. Everything that we're going to go through tonight, or at least the more tactical stuff in terms of tips and tricks for you to take away and use in your own operation. Local Line has resources on our website to back up, and we've got case studies as well. So please feel free to check out our website and our resources page, and I'll provide a link to that towards the end of the presentation, as well as I'll try to summarize it all for you towards the end as well. But let's jump in here in terms of the content. So in terms of what we're going to achieve tonight, or what our objectives are, obviously we'll start off with why is it worth selling online in the first place, and some of the benefits and impacts that a lot of the farmers that we work with to move online have achieved. Is it right for you? I mean, we get that question a lot, is how to know if it's the right fit for your particular business, how to pick the right tools, what tools to even take a look at, what tools are important, that kind of thing, and what mindset to approach it with, where to start. You know, it's kind of start at step number 1. What does that look like? And what are the first few steps in order to get up and running for this season? Then attracting and retaining customers, which is really what it's all about, is how to create an amazing customer experience that's going to drive sales at the end of the day. And then some of those common challenges and pitfalls that we're going to try to help you avoid. And then, as Trim mentioned, we'll circle back to some questions towards the end. I guess I should back up one quick sec and give the 5-second Local Line pitch. I mean, we are an e-commerce tool specific to the farming space. And really our mission at the end of the day is to help farmers be more profitable and match their passion with business profitability at the end of the day. And that comes kind of on 2 sides. One is to help you save time, be more efficient, and focus more on value-added activities like marketing, selling, and production, which we'll talk a lot more about tonight. And then on the other side is helping your customers find you and engage with you better. So that's really what we do. I'll try to keep the Local Line pitch to a minimum tonight, but if you are interested in taking a look at our software and what we have to offer, please reach out afterwards. So quickly, we're going to define what selling online actually is. So it's, in our words, let's get on the same page. It's the use of the internet and other online services, including e-commerce tools, to be engaged in marketing and selling products online. So, some people may use bits and pieces of social media or other tools today. What we're talking about is something more comprehensive where your customers can find and buy from you completely from their mobile device or the computer at home in the online world that we live in today. Actually, Troy, I'm wondering if you can start the poll for me, if that's possible, while I've got, so I don't have to jump back and forth between screens here. Does that work?
Yes, it is.
Perfect.
Launched it.
Awesome. So we just want to start just to do some level setting here. We've got first question is, what brought you here today? Let me move that out of the way. So is it because you think online seems like a good idea, but maybe haven't got started yet? Are your customers? I think that's Michael's question. Can you actually go to CW number 1? Let's end that. Here we go. All right. Try that again. Are you seeing the?
Yes. No.
Perfect. We're on the right track now. So, yeah, it's on. You think online seems like a good idea? Are your customers actively asking for it? Is it because you're trying to engage new customers and you think it might be a good way to do that? Are you already selling online? You're looking for a few tips, tricks to improve, or are you already a pro and you could probably teach this and do a better job than I am, or is it something else? Would love to hear some comments too in the chat. If you've got some other reasons, love to hear them. So we'll just allow maybe another 10 seconds.
Yeah, and to summarize too, Chris, I'm just kind of watching the bars move here, but it seems like most people are in the camp where online seems like a good idea, worth exploring. We've got the next bucket would be I want to engage new customers, and then I'm already selling online, looking for some better best practices. Seem to be the top winners right now.
Perfect. So let's end the polling. So yeah, it looks like you're right, Troy. So just want to get your quick take on that. And in terms of the farmers and suppliers you help, is this pretty consistent with what you've seen as well?
Yeah, and so I think COVID kind of pushed many farmers that didn't have an online presence into having something, whether that was an Instagram way to sell, or a Shopify, or a truly online store through your website or e-commerce platform. But now I think it's becoming more of the space of I have it. What do I do with it? Like, how can I explore this option? How can I grow it? How can I spend the time that I have to do it right? Because at the end of the day, I have this website, I have the store, but how much time do I actually have to market it and manage it? Seems to be the way that things are going. So I think these kind of line with that. Engaging new customers is always on key. I mean, every demographic or every regional area has opportunity. And so how are you reaching those new customers versus people that have been seeing you for years, whether they go directly to your farm or whether they see you at the farmer's market, those people, but how can you reach other people that you are not today? And so selling online is a way to do that.
It's a fantastic point, and we are definitely going to get more into that later on. So I won't respond just yet. We'll truck right along here. So jumping into why is it worth selling online in the first place? What's the benefit to you as the farmer to begin with? I mean, really, it's interesting. Kind of pre-COVID, this is arguably the more compelling reason to move your business online. It was more about saving time and being more efficient in your operations. And when I say saving time, I mean specifically with respect to admin work. So a lot of the better e-commerce tools out there will provide a lot of functionality to alleviate the work spent around order taking, kind of that classic customer reaches out over text message, phone call, email, Facebook, carrier pigeon, smoke signal, whatever it is. It's always at a time that is not convenient for you as a supplier. And then you've got to run to the shed or wherever you got your inventory stored, try to figure out what you've got available, how much of it, and then price and communicate that back to the customer. And it kind of starts this interaction back and forth. So just the admin burden on the farmer to do that alone was pretty significant. So online was a good way to offload all that to a tool that could serve all that information up to the customer right away and automate it for you on the back end, which ties into automated tracking of inventory and updating product lists. Some of the challenges around doing that in Excel or Post-it notes or some other stuff, crazy stuff we've seen, is prone to errors and other mistakes. But then updating price lists, communicating with customers, collecting payments is, at the end of the day, you do need to get paid for your good work. Otherwise, you'll go broke doing growing product, which isn't good. All these things take a lot of time. And online was a great way to address that, and still is, to be fair. But certainly, I mean, we would say this was the trend before COVID, but COVID has absolutely accelerated this trend. In my view, 3 to 5 years into the future, where customer expectations are rapidly changing, so that you just simply need to exist online in order to be relevant and to be found. But again, we're going to dig a lot into that core concept. So in terms of the benefits to your customers, some high-level stats here is you need to be found where your customers are going. So I'll ask the question, how easy is it for your customers to buy from you or find you today? Is it just the farmer's market? Is it just the roadside stand, that kind of thing? Maybe you've got a Facebook page, which is a great start. But if you're not online, it's really hard for new potential customers to find you, do the research as to what products you've got available, find a little bit more about your farm or your operation if they want to, and then ultimately make the decision, make that purchase as well. We see it's important, if no other reason, than to give your customers information as to products, even though they may decide to still show up to the farm to purchase the first couple times. 81% of people do their research for products online. Coupled with that, they're more money than ever before. By 2022, almost $134 billion will be spent online for groceries. Obviously, local food being the fastest growing subsegment within grocer, has a huge opportunity, especially through COVID, as more people are turning to local as a way to feed their families. That's going to be a growing subsegment within an overall growing segment. And then 1 in 4 people have already bought. That translates into 1 in 4 people who are shopping online today for groceries as well, because it does offer kind of the convenience and the safety of ordering from home in the comfort of your own home. You save a lot of time, and the groceries either just show up at your door, or you show up and you kind of pick them, they drop them in your car, curbside style. And then lastly, perhaps the most compelling one on this slide is the 42% increase in basket sizes or in order sizes in online orders over in person. I mean, we've asked this question before to our customers, and we say, what is it about online that causes you to spend more money? And the answer we keep getting is, I don't know. But that's okay, because at the end of the day, it means that they are being exposed to more products to purchase locally than they ever have before. So that all other things being equal, you being online versus your competitors being big box stores or other grocers, it helps level the playing field and ensures that they're spending more of their grocery dollars with you. And then just to round out, why it's worth taking a look online. 3 stats here from the National Retail Federation. 83%, we're going to focus on convenience a lot. 83% of people say convenience is becoming more important now than it was 5 years ago. And how else to make ordering from you convenient than to move online? Online is certainly a great way, if not the best way, to do that, just to be found and give the people the ability to order from you from their cell phone or their computer or whatever the case may be. And 97% on the flip side, if it's not convenient, 97% of people have backed out of making a purchase if they find out that the options that you make available to them are not what they're looking for, or not what they're expecting. And we'll get into some more specifics on this a little bit later on as to how to make things more convenient for your customers. And then lastly, again, most compelling is 63% of customers are willing to pay extra for convenience. It's a really important stat, because what it means is they're willing to pay, more for local, more to support their local friends and neighbors, if it's just as convenient as the big box stores. But it's also a way to kind of set yourself apart from your competition, is to do the little extras that will make the biggest difference for your customers. and ensure, they see the options that are important to them. And if they're willing to pay for it, it means that it won't be a loss leader for you. You can still offer convenience and make it profitable for your business at the end of the day. You don't have to give it away for free. Any thoughts on that, Troy?
Yeah, no, I mean, so one of the questions we usually get to is like, selling online feels a little bit impersonal to me. Like I've always been a interaction face to face with people at the market or at the farm, and am I going to lose that? And as an opportunity, if it's somebody that you're dropping off food for, or they're going to do a quick pickup, that's where you can do what Chris has mentioned, is like make a little recipe card from your farm, or make a little message card and put it in with your produce or whatever. Create that personal touch, and then follow up with them, which I'm sure Chris will touch on, which is like all your different touch points, like whether that's a newsletter or blog or whatever. And that's how you kind of grow a relationship. But I get that question a lot, which is, I'm losing my personal touch that I've always had with my people, because I like to share about what I do and meet them. And so there's a way that you can combine the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I feel like I keep saying this, but we're going to dig more into that later on. We've got a lot to get through, so giddy up. So the next question, again, a lot of people we talk to are trying to figure out is it right for your particular business? Are you ready for it? So a few questions to consider as you figure that out. Number one is online really is a lot about driving additional sales, as we saw some of the interest earlier on from the polling question would indicate that, and it is about trying to engage new customers to some degree for everybody, really. Or to keep your old ones happy and still provide a great customer experience. So the question becomes is, if you're starting out your business from the beginning, have you exhausted the people who are closest to you that could be potential buyers? So we're talking friends, neighbors, family. Local farmers markets are a great place to start as well, and kind of be exposed to the local food scene where you're more active and intentional customers are already going. So that would be the best place to start before you even consider jumping online. That, if you're kind of that farmer that this is your first growing season, that's the best place to start in our view. Then, so once you've exhausted that, who are your target customers and where can you find each other? If you, are your customers even online? If, obviously depending on the demographic, they may not gravitate to online and it may not be the right option for them. And if that's your primary customer base, you're not going to get as good of a return for that investment. With that said, by and large, the trend is, everybody, baby boomers right through to millennials and Gen Zers are all going online first and foremost to look for products. So by and large, the trend is moving that way, but you have to pick what's right for your specific customers. Product diversity is another important one. Kind of having those core products. So things like, breads, meats, cheeses, eggs, potatoes, whatever that form the core where people want to purchase on a regular basis, but then having enough other products to build out your store as well. I'm not going to speak to this tonight, but if you're looking to start, if you feel like you don't have enough product diversity as an individual, but you and a couple of neighbors want to get together and do something collective online, there are still options for you as well that we can help you with. So if that's of interest to you, we call those co-op models, but if that's of interest, then please reach out. I'm happy to explain more about that. And then, what options are you prepared to provide your customers? Online does involve a lot of flexibility in providing convenient options. So, it's going to require you to do things that you maybe haven't done before. And are you willing to do that, or are you prepared to do that? And then do you have the expertise? Are you willing to learn? You don't need a ton of technical expertise to do this. I would say being that you've gotten this far, you're on Zoom tonight. That's that's about all the technical expertise that you're really going to need. It's pretty much that simple. But in terms of the marketing side of it, it does, does take some effort there, and it is going to be a little bit of a learning curve on that side of the business. So are you willing to kind of learn and put in a little bit of time involved in that? And then lastly is, what's your primary goal? And if you achieve it, are you going to get the right ROI? And this is perhaps the most significant one, is will this be a good return on the investment of time and money that you're going to have to spend on doing it? In terms of getting that ROI, just some quick stats in terms of what's fairly typical among the suppliers we work with. And I would say it's fairly standard in just moving your business online is the increase in order size that I spoke to earlier. So our stats are pretty consistent with the industry trend as you're seeing. But then in terms of error reduction and the admin time saved and the efficiency gained, you're able to reinvest that time back into more value-added tasks like production, as well as the marketing involved. All right, question number 2. I think I can launch that here. So we've got, what, if any, tools are you currently using? So I think you should be able to select all that apply in this particular case. So any social media at all, I've listed a couple of examples here: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter is perhaps another big one in this community. Any communication tools, so email or newsletter. MailChimp is a common one that we come across. Do you have a website today? Do you have an online store? Website and online store are not necessarily the same thing. Are you listed in online directories? There's lots of them out there, some good, some bad. Is it something else? Again, there's lots out there that I haven't thought of or we haven't come across. I'd love to hear about it. Or is it none at all and this is totally new to you? So Troy, just as we give a couple extra seconds here, what's your experience with the farmers you work with? Is it a fair cross section? Have they just kind of started with the social media, or have they expanded beyond that?
Yeah, I'd say website is usually a good start, and then a jump into online store, and then social media would be Facebook and Instagram are pretty heavily used. I will comment that, and I've mentioned this to some of the farms we work with, to leverage Google. So many farms, and if you do today, excellent, but you can create a Google My Business account. And why I would tell you to do that is most people out there, whether they're buying online or not, are shopping farms through Google first, meaning they're typing in a product or they're typing in farms near me or whatever it is. So it's a perfect spot for your farm to come up first. And whether you drive them to your website or your social media page, you can select that, or you even add like a temporary, like 1 or 2 products from the Google page just to lead them to your website or wherever, is something that we've been exploring, because one of the first interactions that a consumer might do is to go to Google first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Google obviously being the largest search engine out there is the primary spot where people go, but they're even starting to look in some of the social media channels through Facebook and Instagram, and we'll talk about hashtags and things a little bit later and how to use them. To find local food options, because they recognize you're not always going to find local business, local farmer through search engine, and can get buried in Google if it's not optimized, and it can be really tough for you to appear at the top of that list. But certainly it can be very easy and effective for you to be found where other search engines people are going to, like social media, which often doesn't get thought of as a search engine, but people do go there to search for things.
Yeah.
All right, let's share some results here. So looks like the final tally is in. This not super surprising to me, but it looks like a lot of you are off to a really good start with social media. The next highest one being a website, which is great to see as well. I mean, we're going to talk tonight about using some of those things like your website and your social media in particular as a funnel to drive them towards, an e-commerce application where you can not only drive that interest at a top level, but provide people with the opportunity when they're most interested to actually purchase from you and present your products in a way so that people's excitement turns them into a buyer. All right, so where to start? I think it's important to understand the disposition of your buyers, and in our experience, we see 2 major buyer groups that have emerged in the local food scene in particular. So the first one being, is the one that you're probably more familiar with, and is the traditional local food buyer is the experience-based one. And what I mean by that is somebody who really values the relationship with their local suppliers. They'll typically stand at your booth at a farmer's market and want to talk for a little bit longer, or they might have 1,000 questions for you. And they really care deeply about the local food scene for a variety of reasons. Their values align with local food. And they're looking for lots of information on top of that. They tend to be a little bit more proactive in finding those options. So, those are the people who are more likely to find you. And then you'll see them come to farmers markets. You'll see them be regulars at farm stands, that kind of thing, because it's just part of their regular behavior. And they're loyal through the relationship with the supplier. They tend to keep coming back to support suppliers because they love what you guys do and are really committed to that. The strategy to them, of course, then is to have a supplier first message, right? Is to give them somewhere, have the information available where they can look more what you have to offer or understand your farm story, and really get to know you a little bit better and why you do what you do. If you're non-GMO, if you're grass-fed, if you're have other certifications that are important to your operation, then highlight those, and those are going to be important to this type of buyer group. On the other side, and certainly this seems to be where the greatest potential is the convenience-based buyer, because these are the people who aren't traditionally buying local food, but are increasingly so, looking for local food options now more than ever. Certainly the beginning of COVID was a big catalyst for this, as it encouraged a lot of people to look for local food options, to avoid long lines at grocery stores only to get in and see empty shelves. And, we saw tons of anybody who had already used e-commerce in our experience prior to COVID were selling out almost immedately. And it was a real scramble to get everybody up online in short order as everybody pivoted. And anybody who had already done that had a leg up for sure. And it was because all these convenience-based buyers were looking for that other option. They're looking for quality products. That tends to be what's most important. As well as flexible and convenient options. And then, as part of that is grab and go type opportunities or delivery wherever possible. We're kind of in the age of Uber Eats or Amazon delivery or whatever else. And it's trained a behavior where people start to expect delivery as much as possible. So if you can provide it, it's a great thing to reach more customers. And they're loyal through good and consistent service. They're more, it's providing a good level of service to them is going to keep them coming back, even if they've got a one-off bad product from you. If you're able to reconcile with that customer, they'll reward you for in the long term, and are likely to refer other people to you as well. So the strategy here is, the product first message. They're less concerned about your entire farm story, more interested as to product availability, and, attract and communicate regularly with these people the same way they would expect to be communicated with their favorite retailers elsewhere in the space. If they're an avid Target shopper, and they get the Target emails all the time and online flyers, you want to be present and top of mind with them as well, because we all need to eat 3 times a day, 7 days a week. So chances are, if they order from you one week, they're going to want to come back and order again in another week. But, you need to maintain that be top of mind in order to get them to actually do that. So when it comes to promoting your farm, it really runs through this cycle that I'm going to dive deeper to in the next slide, but it's promoting awareness. So thinking of your customers as a funnel, or a pipeline rather, where you kind of want to start them at one end and walk them through a sequence all the way to the other end. So it starts with brand awareness, just having people know about you and know what products you have available, then converting them to actual buying customers, and then retaining them and upselling and reselling those customers, providing more opportunities for them to buy from you on a consistent basis. So to attract them, this is where social media in particular plays a big role, as we were talking about being found where customers are going to look. So I'm not going to get a ton into search engine optimization tonight, because it gets some pretty complicated, and it can be a challenging thing to do. But the easiest and lowest hanging fruit to start with would be, and it looks like 78% of you, according to that poll, are already doing this, which is a fantastic start, be present on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. You don't have to do them all, but I would say go pick the top couple where your buyers are and where they're active. You may have to insert yourself in community groups or things like that. And ask some friends and family to start sharing at your page or things like that, and that will go a long way. Video content is really helpful. On social media, don't feel like it's constantly got to be product centric. It can be just some basic anecdotes and things that you're doing on the farm that particular day, because people like to see that as well. I was watching a TikTok video earlier today. It was an Australian farmer yelling at his animals. It was wildly entertaining. So even if you can make it funny and engaging that way, it's a really good way to go viral and be present and be top of mind for a lot of people. Then next, we go to convert. So that's where you want, as I mentioned before, is whether it's your social media or Facebook or your website, or even offline channels such as your farmers market stand, use them as a funnel to generate that high level awareness and interest in your product and your farm, and give them a clear call to action where they can actually buy from you when they're interested and be kept informed of what products you have, availability, inventory, etc. That's where the e-commerce part, that Local Line specializes in particular, is really advantageous. Is you want to kind of close that loop where it's great to get them excited on social media, but if they don't have something to gravitate to, if they have to pick up the phone and call you or message you and start this back and forth, you're going to get a huge drop off where customers don't proceed through those steps, versus you'll see higher conversion rates and higher sales of those kind of top of funnel or intro pipeline leads through to sales if you give them that opportunity to actually buy from you right then and there. And then it becomes about retaining. Once you've got those customers the first time, you've provided a great customer experience, then retain those customers through regular communication. And that is keeping them up to date through those emails, through recycle your social media channels to do this as well. But you can use lots of tools to, whether it's a farming newsletter or simple product updates or price sheets or price lists, things like that. That will go a long way to kind of reminding people so that it becomes an ingrained behavior where they're ordering from you weekly, not that infrequent one-off. And then lastly, to finish out our acronym ACRE, is to evaluate. It's constantly going to be an iterative process. It's not likely you're going to be super successful at this the first time or the first thing you try. Troy and I were talking about a moment ago, somebody he knows wasn't online for 2 years, posted, and then was hoping to get sales out of that right away. It's not quite that easy. It does take a little bit of time. So, give it the good honest try and make changes, iterate, and ask your customers for feedback as well. They love to be engaged, and nothing makes a customer feel valued more than you just simply asking their opinion and what they care about. Because then that's going to create a better relationship between you and them as well. All right. Question number 3. So we've got, where do most of your customers come from currently? Is it social media, like we talked about? Are they coming through your website, word of mouth or referrals? Farmers market, I think you can select all that apply on this one as well. Maybe not. And then online directory, is it something else? Or you don't have any customers and that's why you're here. You're looking for some help. So we'll give this a couple seconds to run up.
Yeah, Chris, what is referred to as other, just so I can understand the context there?
Yeah, it would just be anything that's not listed above. Looking for, is there some channel that your customers come through that we hadn't thought of? One thing potentially, I guess you could arguably put on here is CSA. Although CSA, you typically advertise it through one of these other channels, but usually you treat those customers a little bit differently than you would, your regular retail or wholesale customers.
Sure.
But is there anything else that comes to mind for you, Troy, in your experience? Is there anything that I missed here in this list?
No, I don't think. I mean, a lot could be covered within word of mouth. I was trying to think outside of like the internet, but word of mouth is pretty popular as far as like friend referrals and community, where they don't even need to come from your website first. They just know somebody that already buys from you.
For sure. And even something, and it looks like word of mouth is the winner. So,
Yeah.
even something like word of mouth can be made a lot easier and amplified with an online channel. How many times has somebody sent you a link on Facebook or texted you, a link to something that they think you may find of interest? The same thing, you allow for that opportunity here. And what it does is the person referring creates a clear call to action for the person they referred, as opposed to if I just tell you about it, I'm relying on you going home and taking that action later on. Versus, we'll talk about kind of some referral ideas a little bit later on to reward your customers in order to do that. But the idea is to take all these channels and try to accelerate and amplify them, not get rid of any of them. You want to employ as many of these as possible in order to get as many new customers as possible, if that's your goal. But certainly, online can be a great way of accelerating and making a lot of these a lot easier for all customer groups. And, to the 12% of you who are, and I have no customers currently, that's why I'm here. This is a great place to start. Hopefully you get a lot of value out of this webinar, but everybody started somewhere. So you're in good company. Okay, let's jump into the meat of today's webinar. So it's all about attracting, retaining, attracting, converting, and retaining customers. So, one of the questions Troy posed to me when we were first talking about this webinar was, what tools, he gets asked a lot. If I remember Troy correctly, it was, what tools do you need to get this set up and going? Do I remember that right?
Yeah. No, that's a good place to start.
Perfect. So I think when it comes to attracting, social media is the cheapest and easiest way to get started. It doesn't cost you anything to start up these accounts. If you put a few photos and spend, a little bit of time adding in some content, you're good to go. The one thing is it's not about setting it, forgetting it. If you can't leave it for 2 years and expect these channels to perform for you, you do really need to spend and dedicate a little bit of time to them. But the idea is that you want to be found, you want to be present, and you want to be shareable. It's easier for people where they're going to social media on a regular basis already. If they find you, they can share you with their friends and neighbors, and then create that viral effect as well, and kind of amplify that word of mouth in particular. So in terms of just some high level strategies here as well, from a social media strategy, you do want to be personal. It's not all about pitching products all the time and kind of prices and updating spreadsheets. If you create a compelling enough story from the get-go, people will do that on their own when they jump to your e-commerce store. So let the e-commerce part take care of some of the more boring details. We'll use your social media instead to be a little bit more engaging in terms of sharing stories from the farm, what you're working on that particular day. If you've got a new product you're particularly excited about or that's coming soon, that's a great place to advertise that as well. You do want to be recognizable. Local food production is a very personal thing. I mean, the farming is not an occupation, it's a way of life. So you are your farm, and your family typically is your farm as well. So introduce them and have them be part of the story. And then you want to tag regular customers as well. If you've got some friends and neighbors who frequently buy from you and they're going to like a particular product, tag them in it. It gets them excited. And then again, that's kind of their prompt to start sharing it more broadly within their networks as well. And you can even start following and tagging in other community groups or other farmers that you happen to work with and get some collaborative and cooperative marketing going on as well. We see a lot of success in that. That's actually becoming a new trend more towards the latter part of last year, is farmers kind of getting together to collaboratively market, especially if they've got complementary products. I've got meats and cheeses, and you've got eggs and potatoes. Together we form practically an entire grocery store. So there's a lot of benefit to your customers if they're seeing it all in one place. Using hashtags allows you to be found more easily, right? It's an identifiable feature in a lot of, so that's using the pound sign and then just putting, mashing together a word or two all into one, where if people are searching key terms, it's going to allow you to be found a little bit more easily there. And then, you can be consistent across all your channels as well to provide some consistency from one social media source to another. And then, while you don't have to create all your own content, if you want to share a joke that you saw somewhere or a funny farming photo or something like that, that's great too. But certainly some original content from you is key. So just an example here, we've got Amy and Graham from Fiddlefoot Farm, a customer of ours, and they do a fantastic job of being really present on social media. You can see they've got a pretty decent following here, over 1,000 followers on their Instagram. I think, I don't see the number here, but I think it's around similar numbers for their Facebook as well. And posting some stuff for Valentine's Day as well. So trying to make their farm present as part of the Valentine's feed that you'll see when everybody's going on Facebook. And then we've got an example here from Merry Meeting Kitchen. They're one of these co-op groups that I've been talking about that they've got together and collaboratively marketed. They do, again, they do a great job. Food Takes a fantastic photo. I love pastries and pies and baked goods, so this is just making my mouth water. But if you can take a good photo of your particular product and highlight that for your customers, it's going to create a connection from your product to them. So don't underestimate the power of that visual media of, presenting your product in a way where it's literally going to have people salivating to the point where they're excited to actually buy it. And then, as I mentioned, making that clear call to action where they can complete the cycle and then actually click, as little as a click or two away, order that product either for delivery or pickup when they're most excited. And sorry, I should mention here in the bottom right hand corner, Merry Meeting actually in the fall saw a 24% increase in sales or growth rate relative to the same time last year when they moved online. As I mentioned, hashtags help you be found a little bit more consistent, and they add consistency across your various channels. Especially if it's a hashtag used by local community. So if you're part of a farmer's market, you can use that as well, because stands to reason there's going to be a lot of people that find the farmer's market that may not necessarily find you directly, but if they're searching that hashtag or that term, it'll be easier for them to find you. And especially those experience-based foodies we talked about earlier that are looking for local food. They're actively, searching for it in social media. This is a great way to be found. One thing I mentioned before too, and we see a lot of success in this, is use your in-person channels like the farmer's market as a funnel driver. So, you take that first customer interaction, you may attract them and kind of convert them to that first sale at the farmer's market where they're walking through and they see your booth and they make that purchase. But it can be challenging oftentimes to retain that customer over the long term. They may not be a regular. I myself am not a regular at farmers markets. I love local food, but I don't always have the time to go into the farmer's market on every Saturday and walk around and see every booth. So if you can make that easier for me to actually be kept up to date and order from you, even when I don't make it to the market that week, that's going to help you retain that customer as well. But again, using that as a driver to make infrequent market customers into regular or routine farm customers is a great strategy. And putting up promotional signage, indicating that, telling people you've got a website, look us up, go place your order there. And then you can even offer them the ability to pre-order for next week's market as a pickup location through your online store as well. which the big benefit to them is if they can't get there at 8 in the morning, if they're not showing up till noon on a Saturday, they can ensure that you've got the product ready for them, prepackaged, ready to go, as opposed to not knowing whether or not they'll have anything left at that point. So great feature, great benefit to your customers that way. And then converting. So this is where, this is a kind of a screenshot of what a local line, we're actually doing a storefront refresh that's coming out later this month as what the updated version of local line is going to look like. But the idea here is just build an attractive store where your customers can see the information that's something a little bit more similar to what they would expect in general e-commerce, whether they're shopping through another business that's online or Amazon or something like that, something familiar to them where there's trust and credibility in that. And it certainly adds a level of professionalism for your particular operation. One thing I came across in doing some research, which I thought was really interesting, was the factors that drive a customer's decision and some of the things that you can capitalize on, and just by doing nothing else but making things clean, look good, providing information up front, setting expectations clearly is really going to help customers feel comfortable with buying online and buying from you online, and can be, again, a real differentiator. A lot of these things, again, on most standard e-commerce should be able to enable you to do these to varying degrees. But as you go through and you build out your store, it's easy to kind of overlook the importance of, pricing and shipping information as an example. But being number one, 95% of people want to see that up front when making a purchasing decision. So if it's not there, they assume it's going to be way too expensive or it's not available, and they'll quickly back out of that experience and not order from you at all. So to improve your conversion, so the amount of people that will actually go online, find you, look at your store, and complete that purchase, these are some things to consider when you do that. Any thoughts on this one? I'll take a quick breath here, Troy.
Yeah, it's one thing that's kind of crucial to think about here. If you're having a hard time figuring out what your customer may care about, these are good things to consider. Put yourself in that shoes. That's what I like to offer. Like, think about the things that you buy, like whether you buy online or whether you go into a store. Think about the behaviors that you have, and then think about how that might actually interact with an online store with your customers. And so I only offer that because sometimes we struggle to see what people care about, and therefore we fail to put it in front of people the way that we think what they want versus what we think that they want. And so try to put yourself in their shoes, what you do, maybe align that to your customer base or what demographic that is, and to help yourself understand their behavior.
Absolutely. Empathize with your customers. We're all consumers in one way or another. So, what makes a great experience for you? What do you look for when you shop online? And providing those same sort of things, options for your customers, goes a long way. And as we see here, it's not rocket science. It's nothing crazy or super complicated. Sometimes it's the little things, little straightforward things.
Yep.
Another example here of what one of our customers, their store looks like. Again, trying to make things really clean and similar to what you'd see in other e-commerce experience, and very straightforward, as well as you have the learn tab at the top, or the gallery, where if you're looking for more information about this particular farm or this family, it's a farmer and his 4 daughters and his wife, so they've got a great story to tell. If that's what is important to that particular customer, provide that information so they can dig in. For those experience-based customers, but those convenience ones, you've got that shop now button. I think I may have covered it up here, but they've got one on their main page as well, where it makes it quick and easy, as few clicks as possible to allow those customers to actually complete a purchase. Some of the options, to really provide and the benefits that you can do online is 24/7 ordering. Allow your customers to order anytime that's convenient for them, as opposed to only what's convenient for you to respond, which again is going to make things a lot easier on them. And people can order from their PJs when they're sitting at home in a snowstorm like today. So that really helps engage them as well. multiple payment options. This is something I know this is a big stickler for some farmers, is paying the 2% or 2.5% or 3%. Credit card fees can be difficult when margins are already pretty low. And I'm totally sympathetic to that. The one thing we see though, without a doubt, people who provide multiple payment options, including credit card, tend to do better. And it is a way, it's not just to say, if I don't provide credit card, it'll force people to do e-transfer. It's actually more likely that if you don't provide credit card as an option, that customer will not purchase from you, or at least a certain percentage of them will. So, as we saw earlier, 97% of people will back out of an experience if they don't think it's convenient enough. So it's one thing to consider, is by providing that option, it will help to make things more convenient and drive more sales at the end of the day. But again, most, especially farm e-commerce tools, are designed to allow you the options. If you want to do e-transfer, in-person cash, whatever, you can do all those things as well. The next thing is providing multiple pickup locations and times. Obviously, you're not going to be able to run a 9-to-5 business 7 days a week, where your customers can come and get a product from you anytime, or if you can, that's fantastic. But it's not always realistic. So one thing online can do is set those expectations up front for when you're going to be available for pickup on farm, at the farmer's market, a community center where you maybe have a pickup location where your customers meet you there, things like that. Or if you've got delivery options, same thing, is kind of funneling your customers into those delivery or pickup windows, which is going to be a lot more convenient for you. But if you only do one time, same time each week, if that doesn't work with somebody's schedule, they're never going to order from you. So having a couple options will definitely make things a lot easier and more convenient for that particular customer. And then this catalog schedule is, we call it catalog schedule, but in our system, but essentially sending out reminders on a regular basis for people to be able to be kept up to date, see new product lists, that kind of thing. As well, it's important on an online store is highlighting or calling attention to products that are new that you want to feature that particular week. Maybe, products, mix it up. Some weeks products that are more popular to drive some interest, and other weeks, products that are a little bit lesser known, or maybe even some obscure products that, people aren't as familiar with, don't know how to eat, don't know how to prep it, and put a story around that, including things like adding in recipes or recommendations onto what to pair it with or how to eat it. You don't just want them to buy the food from you. You want it to taste good when they eat it, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to drive them to come back and want to buy that thing again. We already talked, and I'll show you a couple examples in a second on some great photos and what they look like. But don't underestimate the value of a good photo in selling products as well. If you don't, it's really telling when people don't add product photos in. On kind of the extreme end is people will quickly pass over that, especially when it's food being a very visual thing. They want to see something that looks good and that is attractive, as like those pies we saw earlier. So if that's the case, give them something really to gravitate to so they can kind of visualize, make that connection. If you don't do it, almost nobody will order that particular product. So it's worth taking the time to do. And then lastly, I kind of alluded to this already, but you can talk about features and benefits of that particular product, right? So if nutritional information is important to that product, or if, like we said before, if it's, non-GMO or grass-fed or other certifications, or if you just want to add in a recipe, there are more things that you can add to it other than beyond just a regular standard description. So here's a great example of a really attractive photo. Again, some of these are professional done. Some of them are, people go as far as to hire a professional photographer to do it. You don't have to go that far. An iPhone or a decent camera and taking a little bit of time to set up a good photo will go a long way. And there's something to be said with authenticity as well. If it looks too professional, over the top, people may not trust it. They may think it's fake too. So it's good to find that particular balance for your operation, but you want it to be accurate based on what the product is. And then we've got an example here, of some pairing instructions in terms of what this sauce works really well with, which is a great way if you happen to sell those things as well. Then a great kind of referral product scenario where you can sell more product by getting them to buy the first one and referring them to the second one. Then we jump kind of to the next stages. It's about once you've got that customer attracted and the top of the beginning of your pipeline, you've moved them, you've converted them, you've sold them that first time, then you want to retain them long term. So as I mentioned before, MailChimp is a great tool where I think you can send up to, and maybe somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, I think you can have up to 250 contacts or email addresses, if I'm not mistaken, for free in their free version, and then you have to upgrade it. But I'm sure their website will have more information on that. But it's a great tool to put together some really attractive newsletters if you want to go that far or spend the time on communicating some more stories with your customers. But if not that, then at the very least, our option in our system works great just to send that daily, weekly, or bi-weekly reminder for people to go in and place that order and really build that routine among your customers, trying to ensure that, they know, they'll know when product is available. And if they get in that regular routine, and if they're a delivery or pickup customer, it becomes like clockwork where they go in, they place their order same time each week. Then you drop it off same time each week, or you pick it up, and you almost turn that, regular retail customer into almost like a CSA type scenario, when you can keep them up to date with what products are available. Again, make it easier for them to be kept up to date and engage with your business. So to do that, most systems like ours will collect the information on your behalf and send it out automatically, or you can upfront ask people for their email or other contact information in order to do this. Email works really, really well. It's a scalable way for you to send out a mass message with a click of a button. And generally speaking, in the food space, we actually see pretty good engagement rates with those emails and pretty good uptakes, click rates, open rates, that kind of thing, because they know they're connecting with a local business as opposed to a lot of the spam that gets sent out there. So as I spoke to this already, but you do, in our world, you can use customer accounts to be able to send emails out to everybody in an automated fashion. And, you can split it. We see people split emails into two categories: those marketing newsletters, which is more informational, kind of adding to your story, maybe something, story of the week, or something that interesting that happened to on the farm that you want to tell people about, or what stage of growth the product's at, or things like that. And then there's just the straightforward reminder emails. And sometimes they do either or, but again, it's about picking the option or a combination of options that's going to work for your particular customers. And, it's worth asking customers for feedback as to, what they're looking for as well to help maintain that connection. Customer loyalty programs, we've seen a huge increase in those as well. Giving them something like store credit for your business. So, as a reward for referring other customers to you, or, maybe run contests, things like that. There's lots of different things you can do and provide a tangible reward back. So more ways for people to engage with your business, get excited about it. And generate a little bit of virality to it as well, where you can advertise that stuff on social media, even to existing customers, and have them share it around. So let's say you do run a CSA, you want to give out a free CSA subscription for a particular season. You can run a contest and have people refer in their friends and neighbors, and for every referral they get a name in the ballot box. Something like that goes a long way, just to driving more attention to your website, and then gives you the contact information so that you can market to those people. And then it's all about driving surprise and delight at the end of the day, and a connection to your particular products. So just a quick example here of newsletter, that's commonly done through our system. And when the Arnolds did this at Pleasant Valley, they actually drove just that feature alone, sending out that reminder email and nothing else, drove an extra 10 orders a week, and their orders averaged about $50. So if we actually look at our entire system, it increases the number of orders by about, I think it was 26%, just by turning that one feature on alone. And that's not trying to create or find any new customers. That's just using the customers that you've already got in the system. And then, as I mentioned, highlighting your products at the front of your store. So if you've got a banner or something else, you want to inform people what products you've got, you're featuring that particular week, new products, products on sale, that kind of thing. Or just something, product of the day, that kind of thing. If you want to get on that cycle, that kind of banner or header is a really good way to switch things up for your customers and direct their attention to something new that they maybe didn't otherwise know that you had. So despite all the talk about online, customer service is still king. It's still very important. I think we've all had both good and bad customer experiences that really define how we view that particular business. And we're all human. Sometimes mistakes happen. A product or a customer doesn't get the product that they're looking for, or it was rotten or expired or something like that. What matters most at that point is how you handle things and the overall experience that you provide. So I'd be remiss if I didn't talk at least a little bit about the general some customer service basics, especially for some of you out there that are newer to this space. Some of the things to think about as you get into this. So first and foremost is up front, it's good to document or think about and document some basic customer service policies and things like expired products or quality issues and refunds, and what you're willing to do for those customers, especially if you've got multiple people in the family or you've got employees that are dealing with this. So you want to make sure that things are consistent across the board. So in order to do that, it's best to have something that you can refer back to as well. And if you communicate that on your website or somewhere else, it gives you a leg to stand on to your customers. And somebody may be upset with you, but if that's communicated or made visible in a public place early on, it kind of gives you something to refer to if you need to stand by that particular customer service policy. Other things that are basic, and some of you may be doing this at farmers markets already, but offering free samples or freebies, an extra, maybe an avocado in a box full of strawberries or something like that, just to encourage people to try something new and hopefully next time come back and purchase that product. And which will encourage people to take a look at those lesser known products or those lesser purchased products that are not quite as common. And then certainly in the days of COVID that we're currently in, is offering contactless options is almost essential to ensure that people feel like they've got a safe option. Food safety is obviously critical, but person safety is important too. So ensuring that they know you value their safety, and those what you're doing as a business for COVID is communicated up front, and the precautions that you're taking will go a long way to making them feel more confident in that purchase as well. And then lastly, we've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but rewarding customers who give referrals and are kind of your best customers will go a long way to continue to foster that relationship and solidify that loyalty they have to your particular business. And above all, Troy, you said it early on, but be personable and empathetic is key as well. We're all human at the end of the day. We've all got some challenges, and we're all in a weird way, we're all able to empathize with each other more than we ever have, kind of going through COVID together. But it's it's a challenge where if you listen to customer concerns or where things are going really well, it's going to really help solidify and create a better relationship that goes beyond just one good or bad customer experience. So put yourself in their shoes when trying to make it right, or when providing some of those basic options that you think your customers would expect that would help them purchase from you time and time again. And then ensuring that those communications, and this is a way to do that we spoke about earlier, right, is if you're only offering delivery on Saturdays or Sundays, you want to make sure that information is presented clearly up front in a variety of areas, right? It's not just enough to necessarily to have it on your e-commerce store, but adding it in, your checkout message, in your newsletter if customers are curious, maybe somewhere on your website or your Facebook page, will help them when they're looking for an answer to that question, rather than feeling like they have to reach out to you, is give them the information at their fingertips. One story we love to talk about is the extreme example where it's Pleasant Valley Farms that I mentioned a moment ago, and they made the difficult decision through COVID to move their business entirely online. So they were they're New York based, going to a bunch of different markets there. Decided that markets was too much of a risk for them and their family, so they transferred their entire business online, and actually saw from December of last year from December saw a 439% increase. I would certainly never promise that to everybody out there who's looking to jump online. Results may vary, but I think it just goes to show when you really invest the time and effort correctly, when you spend less time on admin, that the online systems can take care of for you, and you can reinvest that time back into engaging with your customers, building that relationship in an online and convenient way. You'll be rewarded for it, not only in terms of new customers, but growth and upsells within your existing customers. So let's jump to our last polling question. Let me pull it up here. All right. So what concerns you most about selling online? Let's talk about some challenges and fears for a second. So Troy, what are some of the ones that you hear a lot about?
Not enough time is definitely, we'll see if this one creeps up there, but most cases that is it. And I think it's a number of things, right? It depends on how your farm operations is set up. Are you new to it? So you're gonna have to spend more time where it's established. You're gonna spend a little bit less time on it because it's kind of running and you just do more of the marketing. But that tends to be a high one. Technical expertise, that's about probably right in line too. And I don't think, so this one's interesting to me because I don't think of it so much as like, I've never used online or a website, so I don't know how to sell online. I think it's more of like, it's a completely different channel of how to reach people, and so how can you use a tool to do something completely different to reach people, whether that you already have established as customers or to reach new customers. And I think people view that as a technical challenge, but it can be just a distribution challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, again, that's fairly consistent with what we've seen too. There's only, as I learned really well growing up on the farm, there's only so many hours in the day to get it done. You got to make hay when the sun shines, as they say. So you want to spend those few hours that you have dedicated to the most valuable added tasks. And production, to a large degree, is something that you can't fully automate. There's always components to it. You always want to spend more time. I've never met a farmer to date who would rather be at a computer doing admin work than out in the field or in the greenhouse doing what they prefer to do, which is producing a great product, which is what they're really passionate about. So the time required to do something like online can be really daunting. And certainly that technical component, not knowing where to start, is a big challenge. But hopefully we've alleviated some of those fears today. If I haven't done my job, if I haven't at least addressed these to some degree, but just to circle back is, the time, what online does is it reduces the admin work required and some of the more functional things like order processing, collecting money if you decide to accept online payments and credit cards, inventory, updating, pick and pack lists, all that stuff can be done for you so that, you can reinvest, and some of that stuff that you're already spending hours doing today can be reinvested and reshift back into more valuable activities, including production, but certainly marketing and selling as well. And then the technical expertise, that's where, companies like us, we're here to help, and any good company that you work with is really committed to providing you with great support. And I would say if you're out there looking for a tool, make sure that you're comfortable and you have a good understanding of what they're willing to provide as far as support and help goes. But I would say it's not nearly as much as technical requirements as people think. It's more spending time engaging with your customers and, posting the same way you post on Facebook today. It's less to do, you don't need coding background. You don't need to be a software engineer to do this. It's pretty straightforward stuff. And, most tools will if they're designed correctly, they'll create a really easy experience for you to get up and running. As we say for our system, it's 5 steps in 90 minutes. You can get up and running and ready to sell. All right. And just as we round out here, some common challenges that we encounter. So when do people fail and how to proactively overcome those challenges? So number one is failure to launch. Most people that we see when they fail, they actually fail within the first 90 days. And it's because it's kind of actually speaks to that not enough time challenge that a lot of people have, is if they don't make the time, or if they don't try to launch at the right time of year where they're not quite as busy, it's going to be really tough to create an online store, create an online presence if you're in the middle of busy planting season where you've got lots of stuff to do and it's very weather dependent and you can't be spending the time at your computer. So launching, sometime like in the off season, so sooner rather than later. So, and then the run up to planting season this year, as an example, will really help you get ahead of the game and do the setup work that will pay dividends later. It will take a little bit more time up front, but it will allow you to, again, experience those time savings later that you can focus more on production when you need to focus on production. Another big challenge is e-commerce with no marketing. So some people will just build a website or an online store, do no promotion of it, and expect that if you build it, they will come. This isn't quite that convenient. I wish it were the case where it was that easy, but the internet doesn't quite work that way. You really got to build that funnel and drive customers to your online store, and so that they can find and buy from you. And then on the flip side of that, marketing with no e-commerce kind of sets people up for excitement, only to have them be disappointed where they don't know how to actually purchase from you or where to go to get your particular products. When they're most excited, they kind of fall flat. So you do need to think about both sides of the equation. So it's really good to start with social media. That's 78% of you done that already. You're on the right track. But really the next step is going to be to add that e-commerce to convert those customers to actually be buyers. And then lastly, as I've said many times, is to retain those customers by communicating with them regularly. Next on the list here is, sometimes they set it and forget it. That's not the right approach either. You can't do the set up your Facebook and then neglect it for 2 years. You can't set up your store once and never touch it again and expect to get orders. You do need to update it at a fairly regular basis. Even once a week is fine in most cases, but you just want to make sure what your customers are seeing is accurate to your business at that particular moment in time. So whatever the change or pace of changes in your business is probably going to determine how often you need to update things. Posting on social media fairly regularly is going to go a long way to being relevant and top of mind with your customers. A couple times a week is probably a pretty good cadence to start with. And then lastly is everything else is business as usual. We find when online is used correctly, it can be a really effective way to manage and accelerate all your sales channels. So even wholesale sales, retail, or on-farm stands, farmers markets, CSAs, all of these things can be optimized and accelerated if you move them through an online channel. If you if you create online as an additional channel and you do everything else as normal, you won't experience the benefits. You won't get the full potential value out of the system. And if that's the case, it's really going to be a struggle to keep up with. It's going to be one more set of processes, one more set of tools on top of everything else you're doing. But if you're going to really see the time saved and efficiencies gained, it's best if you can put all of your sales channels in a tool that can help manage them in one place for you. So you've got one record of inventory, one set of pick lists to pull, that kind of thing. Any other challenges you've seen people run into, Troy?
No, I mean, that pretty much covers it. I think a lot of the challenge, and I think what most people will do to coming out of this presentation is there can be a lot to do as far as like selling and stuff, and rightfully so, right? You're running a business, and so what I'd like to maybe just offer here as a challenge is like focus on one thing that you can do better as far as a selling online space, especially if you just got your store up and running and everything, because Chris is sharing a lot of great things to help you optimally run an efficient business to grow your sales online. But don't feel inundated by the information, because Chris is really here to help you, right? And we're here to help you. But just kind of focus in on those things that you think are important as far as growing customers, getting your products up there, maybe even doing a little bit more social media this year, but try to narrow that focus down so you don't feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'm sure there's probably lots of people. I've thrown lots of information out there. There's a few people on this webinar now who are likely feeling a little bit overwhelmed and anxious about it, and that's totally normal. But that's great advice: is crawl, walk, run. And that's kind of what that ACRE acronym is designed to do, is to kind of look at it sequentially. Is start with building awareness. Begin with some social media tools, build your presence there, develop a following. Then you can add in an e-commerce store. I don't even actually think that websites are particularly necessary for every farmer. Some really see value in it. Some don't. You can just have like a pared down e-commerce store. But if you want to do a website too, that's fantastic, but it's not necessarily the right place to invest your time up front. So don't feel like you need to do that. And then, little things you can do in terms of those kind of bite-sized communications on a regular basis to those customers will help drive sales. So hopefully, with some few key steps, you'll see the greatest amount of return for that time investment.
Yeah, and I'll add one last thing here, Chris, which is resources. Like all of this is great, right? But you have to work within the leverage of resources that you have. And so there's been somebody that chatted in a question, which I think maybe Chris and I can go into a little more detail, which is if you feel like you have to do all this, get on social media and all that, but you don't have the time, you can't try to dip your hand in everything, because that won't work either. And so be mindful of what you do have, and then choose an area to focus on that actually fits within your schedule.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, we put a lot of options on the table today, but by all means, I mean, these are tools in your toolkit. You got to pick the right tool for the right job, and if you try to use all of them at once, you're not going to be successful. But if you can focus on a couple that you think will resonate best with your situation and your customers, optimize them before adding on additional things. That'll be the best plan for success. So to wrap it all up, I do want to quickly summarize kind of what I see as the top takeaways for this. So selling online, hopefully to a degree, you believe this already, having come to an online selling webinar, but selling online does have big benefits to you and your customers as well. And really to be found, to make it easy for your customers and really to be competitive, period, you've got to at least have some level of online presence. Next one is, offering your customers great service and lots of convenient options, it can be it can really help to keep you competitive. If nothing else, it'll help level the playing field between you and kind of the classic big box grocery that's out there. If you can match them with an online store that it's just as easy to order from you as it is to order from Kroger's or Whole Foods or wherever else, then that's really going to help. Then the differentiator can kind of become, that's leveling the playing field. Then your differentiator is at your local business. You've got passion in your product, and there's a lot of benefits associated with local food, health, local economy, environment, and the list goes on. And you can tell that story. But people, as we, looked at, is convenience weighs most heavily in people's minds. So you want to be at least just as, if not more convenient for them to buy from you as it is your primary competitors. And then lastly is that ACRE acronym, right? Is attract customers, convert them, retain, work on retaining them, and then evaluate as well, and iterate and improve things, and maybe add on as you've started to master some of the basic stuff. You can get more complex as well. I do want to direct you as well. We've got, whether you're a local line customer or not, we've got a ton of great resources, very tangible things. A lot of what I've covered tonight is available in our ebooks or our social media posts, blog posts, that kind of thing. So please take advantage of those resources. They're there to help you. We are really passionate about this stuff. And if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to our team as well, whether it's product local line centric or not, or anything I talked about. You can reach out to me if you don't have the chance to ask the question now, which we'll jump into. Feel free to contact me at that phone number or email address. Or if you decide, hey, I want to jump in and local line seems like a great tool, you can, this might be my last pitch, you can jump into a 7-day free trial as well if you want to try it on your own, or you can reach out to us and we can help walk you through a little bit more detail. And with that, I appreciate everybody's patience in listening to me talk for the last 80 minutes. It's, like I said, it was a whirlwind, a mile wide and an inch deep, but hopefully everybody got what they were looking for out of this webinar, and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Chris, so there's a handful through the chat, and then there's, I think, 4 in the Q&A bucket. So
sure.
Jumping back through here, Karen said she'd like to hear more about the co-op model, if you have experience in that, if you can just dive just a little bit deep into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, where we've seen co-ops work really well is, it starts off with a small group of farmers. Usually 5 seems to be the magic number, where they've got a complementary set of products, usually fairly close together. And there's some logistics and customer convenience reasons for why that's important as well. But, complementary set of products where you collectively, add greater diversity and greater selection for your customers, and you can satisfy more customer needs as a result. In our system, what you can do is you can actually have your own individual stores that all feed into one central store that you actually use to promote out to your customers. So all 5 farmers, let's say, can actually post your products in one place, and then still have the customers go in, complete checkout, and have any online transactions or money that's collected be still sent to the individual farmers. So you still maintain complete control over your own business, but those farmers really work well on coordinating 2 things primarily. One, it would be the marketing efforts. So really trying to ensure that you're all promoting. If you can all do some of the things that we talked about tonight, promoting it through social media, that creates an amplifying effect where 5 people promoting it through social media is going to be more effective than just 1. And you're going to receive customers from the other farmers participating and vice versa. So there's a lot of benefit there. So that's one major area. And the second one is then the logistics. If you're going to offer delivery options, maybe you're only responsible to do deliveries once a month, even though you're going to offer it once a week or twice a week, and you can share the load that way. Merry Meeting Kitchen, we've got a case study on our website if you want to check it out. They're an example of this. They're in Maine, and they actually one of the farmers, or one of the food producers, she's actually not a farmer direct, she's got prepared foods and other things. She uses her store actually as kind of like a central, almost like a hub as well. So farmers can do the drop off and customers can do the grab and go type as well. So what it does, I mean, what I love about farming in particular, and I still really miss and when I get back on the farm, is the community aspect of farming and really what it means. And this is a great example of where farmers have gotten together to, make things a little bit easier on themselves and create a better customer experience. But yeah, happy to talk about that a little bit more offline too, Karen, if you've got further questions.
I'll just add one thing here, Chris. There's a idea concept, I believe it's from Sweden, called the Reiko market. It's worth checking out. If you Google it up. It's basically similar to that, where you co-op and meet in like a church parking lot or whatever and run your almost like a mini small farmer's market, but with a co-op group of people. So it's worth checking out. I've seen a couple of those pop up in the US this year, especially after COVID. So if you're looking for more detail on that, I would just Google it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sue mentioned, what is the difference between having a website and an online store? And I imagine she's trying to say, which one should I have or focus on, or if I have both, maybe which one do I put more time to?
Yeah, great question, Sue. So I would say you need an online store. You don't necessarily need a website. And there is a difference. Think of the online store as the e-commerce component where people actually see your products, what's available, and complete the order process, which may be different from your website, which is kind of everything else. Think of the website as the wrapper around the package, and the package being the actual place where customers can place orders. There's lots of different options, and I know our system kind of works with all of the above based on what you want to do. My best advice is start with social media as a way to drive that high level awareness, then add in e-commerce, and then that's where you'll see the fastest and greatest return. If you then feel the need that you want a more robust website to tell your story, as a different place to post content, post photos, things like that you have more control over than you would, let's say, a traditional Facebook page, then it's probably worth looking into as well. And we offer, as an example, we offer that option for you too. But we find people spend more time on social media doing their research than they will on your website anyway. So that's probably the best place to start. Would you agree, Troy, or do you think websites are more important?
Yeah, no, Facebook seems to be a huge driver for a lot of people sometimes, and Instagram for sure. Most of the times, if the farm's curious and having a website, I just make sure that they have a contact or a newsletter section built in, because that's a great way to gather information for people that are curious but maybe not willing to buy on the spot there. But it gives you an opportunity to stay connected with them, whether that's via email or send them a newsletter once in a while frequently. And so that is a true value to a website besides them just checking out your pictures and information.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's Jeanette, and I apologize if it's Janet, mentioned, I am concerned about delivery costs. Can I charge a delivery cost if I deliver the produce to the customer?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I would recommend, based on the stats we talked about tonight, people are willing to pay for convenience. And delivery is absolutely a convenience and in that category. So I would say not only is it possible in systems like ours, but I would highly recommend it. You don't want to lose money on delivering products. You don't want to go broke providing convenient options for your customers. That just wouldn't make good business sense at the end of the day. But there's also things you can do and interesting strategies around offering, just kind of similar to what you'd expect on Amazon, right? Once you hit that minimum product or dollar threshold, let's call it $30-$50 or whatever you set it at, then the delivery fee can go away. So you actually can encourage people within the system configurations to add more products to their cart and purchase more from you at the end of the day. But adding that delivery option, like a paid delivery option, as well as a free pickup option, gives customers flexibility to pick what's right for them. If they're a little bit more budget conscious, and then maybe pickup is the right option for them if they've got the means to do so, because they can save a little bit of money there. But if they're willing, if their convenience is really important, they will pay for it. So absolutely, I would say you should charge for delivery.
Yes. This is an interesting one. I've seen this maybe a handful of times, and I'm sure it's coming down the pipeline. But Frank mentioned I saw several QR codes displayed at some farmers' booths this last year. Is that something that could increase exposure, or is it just another social media tool?
Yeah, great question. I think the QR codes really make it easy for customers to pull out their phone, scan it, and then see your website or store right away and get connected right away. So what it does is it just makes it easier for them, rather than having to type in something into their URL, and then you can track how many people are scanning as well. And there's interesting things you can do on the back end. It's one of those things where I wouldn't recommend it as something you need right away or that's essential. But if you want to add it in, and I mean, you saw earlier in the presentation that kind of sign that you can print off and put at your farmer's market. It's just one little way you can do to make it easier for your customer, that infrequent market customer, to say, oh, you've got a website. I'd love your product. I'd love to be kept up to date with what's going on. So I'm going to scan this and then, and then see your website more regularly, and I can sign up as a customer.
Yeah, I mean, it's instant transparency. Right? If you're first time to the market and you don't know anything about the farms, it's a way for the customer to get instant transparency. So
yeah, it's a great way to say it.
Will you please cover, so this is from Jenna, will you please cover typical credit card processing fees, things to be aware of? How do you get certified to take EBT payments? Is that possible online? So three parts to that question.
Okay, fees, how to set up credit card and EBT, right?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, so the fees I know widely varied based on what user or credit card processor you use. The two we see most frequently would be Square and Stripe. Those are the two that we integrate with, and I believe it's, I want to say 2.9% plus 30 cents a transaction.
Mm-hmm.
That sound about right. I've seen a couple others out there. Venmo is becoming a little bit more popular. Some people have gone as far as to accept Apple Pay. I would trust that if you do want to sign up for those services, they'd talk about the rates. But from what I've seen, I think 2.9 and plus 30 cents is probably about average. There's probably some that are a little bit better, but there's definitely some that are more expensive out there as well. In terms of getting that set up, it's really easy to do. Oftentimes those will not require, there's no upfront payment. You only pay it when you use it, and you can go on and quickly in a couple of minutes sign up for an account there, and then have any online transactions you take be deposited directly into your bank account or the bank account that you hook it up with as well. So that whole collection side of your business, or collecting money from customers, it gets a whole lot easier for your customers, but then you don't have to try to track down money and fiddle with that as well. It's all taken care of for you, which is obviously a big time saver on your end. As well as you don't want to show up to a pickup location or a delivery and not have the customer there to pay you on cash if that's the way it is. Having that upfront payment, that certainly gives you a level of security too, if you need to do, especially in contactless world, if you can provide credit card options and you want to be able to drop it off their front door or front porch and just ring their bell and go on your merry way, then credit card is a really good way to do that. As for EBT or SNAP, the USDA has only given out licenses at this point to allow Walmart and Amazon to process EBT payments online. I know lots of solutions, e-commerce solutions like ours have come out with kind of creative workarounds where you can allow people to select an EBT option, but it will not complete the transaction for you. You'd still need to complete the actual transaction itself through the way you currently do. What the system would do is it would just allow you to separate out those orders and say, these ones I know when they show up on day of, I've got to have an EBT option for them set aside. Obviously, we're chomping at the bit to get access to be able to process and work it into our system, but it's just it's a regulatory issue. It's not a technology one at this point.
Yeah, good. Let's see here. Is there a day of the week that is shown to be better for picking up products? So I'm guessing AJ is suggesting what day of the week says the behavior of customers are willing to shop online and pick up farm products?
That's a really good question. And I don't think I've got a good answer to that, or at least not one that's backed up by data. I would say, and this may be a little bit of guessing and testing based on what works for you and your particular customer demographic, right? So and these days, I know myself and our team are working from home as an example. So I could maybe step out for a little bit during the day to do pickup. So maybe pickup throughout the week is becoming a little bit more acceptable now. But traditionally, I would say a lot of farmers markets operate on Saturdays because Saturdays is the most convenient day to drive traffic, right? Is where people are off, they're out running errands and things like that. So generally, if you're going to offer a weekday option, I would probably pair it with a weekend option if you can. But if you need to pick one day, you may be a little bit of guessing and testing. But sorry, I don't have a better answer for that one, but it's an interesting question for sure. Maybe one thing we should look into on our end.
Yeah, and I think, so Chris alluded to this in his presentation, which is to get feedback from your customers. And so if you already have a community of people on Facebook or Instagram, that's something that you could pull with that demographic, right? So try and learn what their best time frame is that works for them. So use that leverage. Not only are you going to learn that insight, but you're going to also build on that engagement with them as well. And so that would be a unique option to learn that answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point.
Let's see here. Do you have any suggestions on how to do referral rewards? So I'm guessing like if they bring in extra sales or customers, friends or family, how would you build that in?
Yeah, we see a lot of our customers issue store credit for people who do that. So, it might be 5 or 10 or whatever amount you decide. If you've got that may be a more scalable way of doing it. If you just wanted to do one-off, items or, give half off an order, things like that, you're always able to do that. Of course, that may not be a scalable way if you're dealing with hundreds of customers, but if you're still dealing with you're kind of a small growth stage business, where you're still dealing with your friends and neighbors and kind of growing through word of mouth, you could do something a little bit more informal, which adds a nice personal touch. But a more formal program usually consists of store credits as well. And I know we always get asked if we do coupons. We don't at this stage, unfortunately. It's something that we're definitely working on in the near future, but that could be one other option as well if you do select a system that offers that.
Rusty says, and this is more of a comment of concern, but I think it could be rephrased into a question that many people would have. So I am concerned that if I increase my customers too much, I can't keep up. And so that is something to consider, because although it is a good problem to have, it's still nonetheless a problem, right? Especially if you don't have the right resources. So Chris, what kind of thoughts do you have on that one?
That is the best problem to have for sure. No product waste at the end of the day. So, maybe he could teach this class this time next year and tell us how he's doing that. So, but no, I in all seriousness, we do have a number of customers that do sell out. Their strategy is to retain their existing customer base. It's not to acquire new customers. So kind of if we go back to that acronym from where they're investing their time, it's all on that retention piece. It's communicating and solidifying that relationship with their existing customer base. It's not about spending a whole bunch of social media time up front to try to be really aware. I would say you never want to move 100% away from that, because you don't know what's going to happen. You might lose customers, and for whatever reason, and you still got to keep that pipeline fill a little bit at the front, but it's obviously going to shift where you spend your time. So strategically, that's where to start. From the system standpoint, that's why the tool is really important, that you track inventory accurately. You never want to have to make that phone call where somebody ordered something that you can't deliver on. If you can avoid it at all, that will sidestep a potentially bad customer experience. So if you can use that, it's going to, if anything, it will create urgency among your customers to order products that they can see that are low in inventory, so that they get it before it goes out of stock. So in some ways, online can actually accelerate that race to being out of stock, which would obviously be a good thing for that business. But that's a way to help you manage it and prevent it from, nobody's going to blame you for selling out, but they will blame you if you sold out and they thought you had that product in stock because they ordered it.
Yes. So Rusty also had this comment, and maybe this is something that for people that are curious and joining a co-op type experience, but he says, I'm concerned with how should I reach out to a co-op or start one or create that loyalty within a group. So do you have any insights on this one, Chris, how people can approach forming co-ops?
Yeah, I would say it definitely requires a lot of trust and community, as I said, among a core group of suppliers. So the best place to start, even before you reach out to a solution like, or a partner like us, is talk to, 3 or 4 of your friends and neighbors that may also be interested in joining you in a co-op and getting together and doing something. You do want to make sure that it's not all based on handshakes, though. We've seen Merry Meeting Kitchen, as an example, has a guideline that they get every new supplier, and they've grown quite a bit. So they started at about 5 suppliers, but last time I checked, I think they grew as high as 15 or 17 at one point. And they really, I would argue that, and they would probably say this as well, it got to a point where it was almost unmanageable once there is a tipping point. So you kind of need to figure that out. But for them, what really helped is that set of guidelines that clear expectations every vendor was going to follow, and levels of customer service that they were all going to consistently provide. So that included, everybody's commitment to continue to actively promote the online store. That included, what they were going to commit to in terms of hours on the logistics side, and the responsibility sharing that happened there, as well as, like I said, the customer service end of it, because unfortunately, if one supplier out of that provides a bad customer service experience, it's going to impact the perception that customer has on everybody. So it is something you want to be careful of. And I wouldn't just bring on every vendor. I would bring on, other suppliers or vendors that you trust and have a good relationship with, at least to start, get it rolling, iron out the kinks, figure out the operational procedures that you need to employ, get the system set up, and then you can look at growing later on. But it starts with a conversation with a few around you. Are they interested? Do you have complementary products? And, are you collectively willing to put in the time? Awesome. But great question, Rusty.
I think I just got 3 more here, Chris.
Wow. Lots of questions on co-ops. Maybe we should do another webinar on them alone.
So let's see, where was it? It was a product question. So I believe, I want to give credit to the person, but what number of products do you recommend to start with? So this is from David. So if you're just getting started online, I think in the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned diversity or a wide range of products or a good mix of products. So what would you recommend starting with?
It does vary, because you need a kind of a combination of core products that people go to and order on a consistent basis. Ideally, I should say this is ideal. We see people make it work that don't meet this standard, but that's ideal. And then, a handful of other options for customers to come in. I would say it's tough to do it with, it's really tough to have a store with less than 10 unique products. And you may have different package sizes. That's not quite what I'm talking about, right? But we see some microgreens producers do it with less than that. They'll have 6 or 7 different varieties that they gravitate to, and that's a niche product, so they have a fairly loyal customer base. And if that's you, you may be able to do it with less than that. But any less than 10 generally is not going to give your customers enough diversity to keep them interested and keep them coming back. Unless you've got 8 of the 9 products that you've got are all core staples that people need to order on a consistent basis, in which case it would change. So that's probably a non-answer, but think about, how core are the products, and are my customers looking for, based on the products I have available, are they looking for a wide selection, or what I have so core, so staple enough that they would order it on a frequent basis, and that would drive them to keep coming back again and again.
And I believe this question's pointed towards local line, Chris, but I think it's either Michelle or Mikkel, and I apologize for the name, but do you integrate with Clover?
I'm not familiar with Clover. So maybe Troy, you know what that is. So the short answer is no. No, we don't. If I've never heard of it, but curious what that tool is and what it does.
Yeah, so I believe Clover was joining the credit card transaction space before Square.
Okay.
My understanding, because there's a lot of greenhouses in the area here that we work with that offers a point of sale, and I believe they use Clover. So I'm not calling Clover ancient, but I believe that was like the go-to platform or software before Square became this more well-known.
Gotcha. Okay. No, good to know. One quick thing on that, I will say is what we do. I mean, we are very committed, and we've got a very aggressive product roadmap and things that we're looking to build to make our customers' lives easier and help them better engage their customers. So, please talk to us if there's something we've got or we don't have that you're looking for. I can kind of give you our take on it. We're usually pretty open about what we're working on. We definitely make a policy of under promising and over delivering on things. That's core to our business. But we are really driven by feedback from our customers and farmers in general in terms of what we do. Our tool, we exist because of you. So if there's some good suggestions out there as to how to improve things or different things we need to integrate with, et cetera, then we love hearing feedback like that.
Excellent. Two left, Chris. It says, so Bill mentioned you mentioned in your presentation to revise based on customer feedback. He's wondering, can you blend customer feedback with other data service providers? He's calling hits, throughs, buys, et cetera. Or is that too complicated? And I'm guessing what he's saying is, can I gather customer feedback and then marry that up with other feeds of service or feedback and get good results to measure or use?
It's a very good question. I mean, I'm a more of a data oriented guy. So I would say if you have access to the data, such as like cart abandon rates or things like that, some of the generic e-commerce tools out there would perhaps have some more robust analytics in that space. But that would help you understand something different about your customer that you may not get anecdotally from them. When you ask for feedback, it's always going to be somewhat filtered. I mean, customers, especially if you've got a fairly decent relationship with them, may be less inclined to offer constructive feedback. So, your good customers, you only hear positive things. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, you hear from your irate customers, but you never hear from the bulk of people who are in the middle, which are really going to give you the most powerful data, because they represent the kind of the standard experience that the vast majority of your customers have. So the data that you could discern from some systems would be helpful. But to your point, absolutely, I would do both. I think there's other intrinsic value in asking your customers for feedback. They'll feel that connection. It'll deepen the relationship, and it's good to do for if no other reason, that alone. But they'll tell you interesting things. They'll talk about their experience. It'll help you empathize a little bit better with them. And it may tell you something different altogether. The transaction data is probably not going to tell you that Friday instead of Thursday is a better day to do pickup, but they may tell you that in person. But what it could tell you is to say, well, if I've got this product that is converting at a really high rate and it shows up front and center on my store, or when I feature a product, the orders that it appears in go way up, then that's the kind of data you could get actually out of a tool like Localine as an example that would really help you understand the impact of those types of advertising campaigns on the store experience that you create.
Yeah, and if I could just add anything here, Chris, I would just say the different feedback mediums are going to help you learn different things. In other words, like your customer feedback, if it's coming from a survey or people that routinely visit your site or buy from you, is going to be different than using click-throughs or behavior analytics like Google Analytics that's tied to your website, because that's really teaching you what people are doing behind the scenes that may or may not interact with you on a daily basis. So you can understand how your site's set up, maybe different visuals that you could use. Maybe there's too many clicking going on. That could, if you reduce your clicking, you gain retention. So there are many different mediums. It's just where you want to choose to spend your time, and blending them would really be the same case. It's what am I really looking for? And if I'm blending the same two things, then I should consider those two data points.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point.
So Kathy said, last year with COVID showed great online increases in sales. Do you anticipate this to continue based on what you know? So any insight on that, Chris?
I could spend another hour on that question alone. That is absolutely, I think, like I said earlier, COVID had really accelerated a trend that already existed, probably about 3 to 5 years in the future. But people were by and large gravitating more towards online options and more convenient options that online can offer. COVID just forced us all down that path, some people kicking and screaming, because the in-person traditional way of purchasing groceries or food or local food were no longer available. So it's, somebody said to me though on a call, is a crisis like COVID is a terrible opportunity to waste in local food. And it's so true, because it's really now more than ever, people who have never bought local before, it's never been a key priority for them, are doing so for a wide variety of reasons. They want to support local business. They like the idea of getting products from their friends and neighbors instead of supporting larger big box stores as a change, not to completely switch all their purchasing habits, but at least to not eat entirely local, but eat more local than they were before, which in most cases was none at all. And just in terms of food safety and product availability, local can offer them something new that they haven't had before. So it's an opportunity. Why I focus on this ACRE acronym so much is, if you can attract those people now, then the name, while they're actively looking for local food options through a crisis like COVID, it's just becomes about retaining them in the future. And that will last long after COVID is done, if you are able to still provide the options that are going to make purchasing from you convenient and easy. They will continue to reward you for that. So we've seen diversification in the local food system, or in the food system overall, favoring local food, and we absolutely expect that to continue. I've seen, there's been lots of businesses that have popped up purely to support local food to make this transition. Others like us have been in it a little bit longer, but it tells us that the overall local food system is very healthy right now. And there's no reason that should change based on the trends that we're seeing.
Excellent. All right, Chris. Well, I know we're up against the 2-hour mark. We've covered a lot of content here. We still have quite a few participants that have hung around, and so we really appreciate you guys. Everybody that joined the call tonight, we appreciate it as well. Again, if you've registered for this session, you have access to this. We'll send out the recording. You can go back to it whenever you want. There was a lot of slide content covered here. We encourage you to continue to join us for the next few sessions, same time next Tuesday at 7 p.m. and the following Tuesday at 7 p.m. Next Tuesday being thoughtful content. So kind of marrying up with what Chris is doing here, but thoughtful messaging for your customers. And then the last session is on lean farming. So thank you again. Thank you, Harris Seeds and Kendall, for organizing all this. And we appreciate your guys' time and hope that you learned something. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Troy. Appreciate everybody's time. Have a good night.